about agro-processing, obviously. It's World Food Day. We're looking at food security as well. Before the break, we were talking about the importance of meeting international standards. That's been a criticism of agro-processing plans and programs in the region for a while now. I want to read something to you which kind of supports everything that you're saying, that you're on the right path. We're speaking about the need for food labeling improvements, analytical options, safety standards, training, support measures to assist registration, implementation, streamlining food regulations. Does that give you some kind of confidence that you're on the right path? I think you'll answer that after we take our next call. Hi, good evening, caller. Okay, we lost that call.
I think we are on the right path. While we are not HACCP certified as yet, we are following the pattern of HACCP certification. In fact, we are following the guide. We do have a guide that we follow, and it's an international guide. It's a universal guide, and so we are following the guide to ensure that we're on par.
But what are you doing to avoid some of the pitfalls, the inefficiencies that some of the other agro-processing plants and facilities and programs in the region have been accused of?
I am not aware of any agro-processing plant, like government agro-processing plant in the region. I'm not aware of any functional agro-processing plant. I am not focused on what's happening out there. What I'm focused on is trying to get the Fund ASO agro-processing plant on par in terms of all of the processes and following the HACCP certification plan for agro-processing, at least for our plant.
Okay, but do you think there's something to be learned from those who have done it before or successfully done it? So
initially, when I first took on the job at the agro-processing plant, one of the things that we did was visit the Barron's Foods processing plant. And we saw what they do, the way they process. And I don't think we are too far-fetched from what I saw. We're not too far from what they're doing. I think we're getting there. We're probably not there yet in terms of everything HACCP standards, but we're working towards getting there.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Barron because we had them in the news this evening. Actually, both Barron and Vikings participated in a major food fair in Germany and did very, very well. I'm told Barron placed in the top 5.
Wow.
Yeah, and Vikings did very well as well. So it's a matter of time, I imagine, before we had a FOASO agro-processing brand.
This is why, like I said, we did our first tour. The staff, myself, we did the tour of the plant. We saw exactly how the plant, and they too are HACCP certified. And so we're hoping to emulate well, not exactly what's happening there, but at least to emulate the Barron's Foods.
Yeah, so you want to go in that direction to hot sauces
in terms of
ketchups and that
well,
sort of thing?
not everything that they do, but in terms of the plan, the whole process, we're trying to emulate the whole process in terms of HACCP certification or HACCP standards.
In terms of product diversification as well.
I don't think we're there to compete with any company. What we're trying to do is to assist farmers, so farmers can find a market, an avenue, a place to sell their products. We're not trying to be competitive. We would like to remain sustainable, but not competitive. We would like for other Central Oceans to be able to try other aspects, try other products, and try to make a livelihood for themselves as well. Like I said, we're not competitive.
Yeah, but in order to remain sustainable, to achieve that goal, don't you have to a degree, go that route?
To a certain degree, but not competitive like the private sector would go.
Okay, we have another call. Good evening, caller. You're on the air.
Yeah.
Hi, good evening.
I want to know if you're interested in buying time.
In buying?
Time.
Time.
Time?
Yeah.
We do purchase time, sir. In fact, we have a customer who brings us time twice a week, so we do purchase time.
Okay.
But you would have to call the plant. Normally, what the process is, you call the plant 453-5901, and you place your order. You ask us whether we're buying, because we have our price list on a weekly basis. Our price list changes, and you can call the plant, let us know what you have, and we can have a conversation.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. You want to go for that list of products that you process again?
Okay, we process yam, dashing, right? We're into the Portuguese yam, and there is a yam called a white yam called a yam pole. So we process the Portuguese yam and the yam pole. We process dashing. green bananas, green plantain, and the breadfruit. We were trying to capitalize on this season's this breadfruit season. However, our packaging material for the breadfruit was not ready. So we're hoping that the next season we will be ready. But we process yam, like I said, the Portuguese yam, the yam pole, dashing, green bananas, green plantain, and hopefully soon breadfruit.
So what do you actually do at the time?
Oh, that time is to, well, the marketing board purchases some of our items. So some of the items that we do not process, we sell to the marketing board for resale in the retail.
And in terms of fruits, you do mangoes and...
For the fruits, we do mangoes, golden apple, guava, tamarind.
what about pineapples?
We're looking into going to pineapples as well, pineapple and tamarind.
I know there's a big push to make us self-sustainable as far
Tamarind,
as
even as the citrus fruits like grapefruit, because sometimes we have an abundance of grapefruit, so we're looking into pulping the grapefruit as well. So most of the fruits, but like I said, all you do, if you're not sure, you can always call us at the plant and we can have a conversation.
I want to ask you again about product diversification. I know you don't want to be competitive, but as you're talking about the grapefruits and the golden apples, I had the opportunity to sample some locally produced, natural, unsweetened icicles.
Okay.
Yeah, is that an area that you might want to go
We
into?
tried that.
I know it was on a small
we
scale.
tried it. We tried it on a small scale. What we did, we tried it and we more or less made a contribution to the primary schools, the infant schools.
Because I was just thinking that's an excellent way to introduce
we
it to
tried
the
it.
schools.
In fact, we have tried it in the past, and we did introduce it to a few of the primary schools. They were interested, but then it's the whole, because don't forget, we need to be operational ourselves. Even if we're not competitive, we need to be operational. We need to be able to sustain ourselves, and so there is a cost for everything. While we have tried it and realized it can work in terms of sending icicles to the infant school or the primary schools, however, there's a cost involved. So all of this we need to take into consideration.
Is any consideration being given to maybe private sector involvement or investment?
Maybe in the long run.
Or you want to keep it?
I think maybe in the long run. I do not want to elaborate on that, but I think there was some talk about that, but it may happen in the long run. I'm not too sure, but this is up to the Ministry of Agriculture.
Okay. You're watching Newsmaker Live on DBS. My name is Kendall Burton. My guest, Cynthia Liner. We're talking about agro-processing. She's the manager of the agro-processing plant in Foaso, by the way. It is also World Food Day. So if you have any questions about agro-processing or World Food Day, the theme for today being sustainable food systems for food security and nutrition. We're talking about the fact that 870 million people worldwide are chronically undernourished. Talking about the value of sustaining or consuming locally produced products, like some of the stuff that you process at your plant. We're talking about the ecosystems which are being threatened, the biodiversity that will be needed for our future food supply also under threat. And we were hoping to have some of the experts from the Ministry of Agriculture here with us this evening to address some of those issues, more specifically as it relates to fisheries and other aspects of the agro industry. Unfortunately, we're stuck, or fortunately, with Cynthia Lionel keeping us company this evening. We're talking about the agro-processing plant and some of the plans that you have for that facility down in Foaso. Why is it that it's taken so long for it to get off the ground and be operational? Is it purely financial reasons?
Financial reasons. Funding plays a major part in terms of getting it, running smoothly as we would like it to. This is one of our main issues, funding.
Okay. We have another call? Okay, no, we don't. Let's talk about food prices. I know you were talking specifically about your pricing as it relates to your relationship with the farmers. There's a concern globally that some 1 billion people could go hungry because of increasing food prices. Is that a concern for you at the agro-processing plant as you emerge, join and expand the facility?
As we speak, the prices for our products are not very high at all. In fact, when we first introduced our products to a certain hotel, they wanted to know whether the prices were in US because our prices are not very high. Because what we try to do, we try to assist farmers because what you would hate to see is all of those items just falling on the wayside. And so we try to assist farmers. By assisting farmers, our prices are not very competitive. While we're trying to assist the farmers, we're trying to remain sustainable. We have to realize that you cannot have your price, the cost of your goods so high. So we try to keep it, excuse me, at an affordable price. For instance, you look at the vacuum pack dasheen is currently being sold at maybe $6.75 for 1 kilogram of dasheen. I mean that this is not.
Have you done a comparison for your pricing maybe by the market, for instance?
Oh, our prices are a lot lower than that by the market, because by the market, and if you look at the process involved in our product, you no longer have to peel, you no longer have to wash, we have already done all of that. However, I still find the prices by the market is a little higher. But then that's my opinion. Somebody else might share a different opinion.
Okay. Why is it, do you think, that food security is such a big issue now when we have had some 800 million people going hungry over the last few decades?
You talk about food security, you talk about healthy eating. Whether people go hungry, you want to ensure that whatever products you produce or you process, you want to ensure that it is safe for consumption. Because while you're talking about people dying of hunger, you do not want people dying of contamination, people getting all kinds of contamination from food. Because you've heard a lot of many companies are recalling some of the products. I think recently there was a company that recalled some baby stuff, and said there was some plastic, some stuff in the baby products. So you want to ensure that while you want to have your items out there, you want to ensure that it's safe, it's not causing the death of the population.
So you have a very close relationship with the Bureau of Standards, I'm assuming.
Yes, most of our training has been done by the Bureau of Standards, yes, and we're hoping for continuous training. In fact, we're hoping that we can get the Bureau of Standards involved in everything that we do to help us get to HACCP certification.
And how regular do you undertake training for your staff?
As often as we can. On Monday, some of the staff, we had 5 members of staff who attended training at the marketing board, and this training was facilitated by CADI and also members of the technical persons within the Ministry of Agriculture. And we have had training from the St. Lucia Bureau of Standards. As the need arise, we get training done. And like I said earlier, we will be getting a technical person from Argentina. So we're hoping to have this person on board full time to allow us to have continuous training in-house.
Okay. Once again, the lines are open. I was expecting a lot more calls. Hoping that people were sharing the excitement that you obviously have for some of the work that's being done at the agro-processing plant. The lines are open, so if you have any questions or comments on World Food Day or some of the activity happening at the Foaso plant, you're free to call and to share those ideas and questions with Cynthia Lionel. Let's talk a little bit about your background, because you're a fresh face. You've been with the agro-processing plant for about a year now.
Just about a year. Prior to me being at the agro-processing plant, I worked with Cable and Wireless. Big change in
a big difference.
Big
How's that
difference.
adjustment been for you?
Well,
And how go ahead.
I like being at the plant. I like having this private background. You bring in that private background into a government entity, because it's like milk and water. It's really different. And so just coming in there, you realize there's such a big difference. The private companies or the private entities, they're interested in profits. They're all profit oriented. Unlike the public service, it's a little different. They're different. And so while the private persons are pushing because they want to see profit, but then I can understand, to a certain extent, I can understand where the ministry is coming from, because they are not there to compete. They're there to ensure that persons or the persons in the country are satisfied or are happy. So the competitive aspect is not there at all.
Okay, we have a call. Let's take that call and we can continue. Good evening, caller. You're on the air.
Yes, good night.
Hi,
Good night.
I would like to ask your guest a question. I'd like to know, in terms of food processing, in terms of the food that's being eaten in the market now, how safe is it for our food in terms of all the chemicals that are being used to sort of to grow food, all those chemicals. I can remember in my days, my early days, we didn't use all those chemicals. We used to have organic food and it was rich. I remember those yams we used to get before. When you used to get a yam, it used to be, when you boil that used to be white, you know. But now this is like the food we get on the market now. It's full of chemicals that are being added to it. You don't have that richness that it once had. So I would like to know how safe is our food in terms of processing, in terms of all the chemicals which are being used to process our food. How safe is food?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Thank you. To what degree you can answer that?
Well, I'm not
sure.
I can tell you from the agro-processing perspective.
You have your procedures.
We have procedures in place. And like I said before, when we have this rapport with our farmers, we go out to ensure that we're aware of what they're using in terms of how they grow their crops or how they grow their produce. I cannot say sorry, sir, I'm not able to tell you how safe the products are. What I can say is I know compared to a lot of the stuff that we have coming in from overseas, a lot of our products are, what's the word?
Safe?
Organic? Organic, that's the word I was trying to find. Yeah, most of our products grown in St. Lucia are organic, yes.
So first and foremost, that's what you go for?
That's what we go for, yes. But that does not mean that some farmers do not use fertilizers, because without the use of some fertilizers, you probably would have to wait a long time, or your production probably might not be sufficient. So you would probably need, but using fertilizers, as long as you follow the guidance given by the Ministry of Agriculture and the field officers, you should be on the safe side. Well, I'm assuming that, but like I said, I'm not technical in that aspect, so I will not be able to give the customer the kind of answer that he's looking for. All I could tell you is at the agro-processing plant, we try our best to ensure that our products are done, are processed safely.
Okay, and that is part of your HACCP certification.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and it's not a problem that's isolated just to St. Lucia or restricted to St. Lucia. Generally, I think the issues with soil quality the world over, you know, so I know he started the call by talking about how
safe
the food was before. It was organically grown. Right. It was more nutritious.
But a lot has changed in the last few years.
And it's not just St. Lucia. So if you're still listening, caller, it's not just restricted to St. Lucia. It's a worldwide problem.
It's a problem, yeah.
Yeah. So again, I guess that lends credence to what you were saying earlier about consuming organic, consuming local. You know, even in the way that you prepare the foods as well. The foods may not be as nutritious as they used to be, but if you use proper preparation methods, you can ensure that you have a degree of nutrition, or you're consuming a degree of nutrients that you would not otherwise. So I think it's best to consume the products as close to the natural state as possible. I think that's why you also take care not to
add any preservatives or colors or additives, nothing of that sort. We try to make it as simple and basic as possible.
Okay, we were talking earlier about just that, and we got interrupted. Let's continue our discussion on the process involved in the manufacture of some of these products.
I think I walked you through one. I walked you through one of the processes, and that was the dashing. The other produce are similar. It's a similar process. In terms of the juices, the juices are done separately. Differently. Sorry. The juices. When I say juice, I do not mean juice, because we do not sell juices. We're into pulp. What we do, because of like I said, the season, sometimes you have a surplus of cherries, a surplus of probably grapefruit, a surplus of mangoes. What we do, we purchase those items and we pulp it. We have what you call a pulper at the plant, where it just sucks out the juices from the pulp or the concentrate from the actual juice. And this is what we do. We pulp it, so that even right now we are out of the mango season. But we do have mango pulp, so in case you feel for some mango juice, or mango smoothie, or something to do with mango, you can come down to the facility and you're sure of getting your mango pulp to make whatever it is you want to make. And this is what we're trying to do. So outside of the seasons, we want to be able to have those items year-round. So while the season is out, the products are available and they are safe for consumption.
You spoke about the length of time that you can preserve the dashing. In the case of the dashing, it's been a year. What would the length or the shelf life be for something like mangoes?
Our fruit pulps are 3 months.
Yeah.
No longer than 3 months, because whether or not, but the thing is, we have never had fruit pulps on our refrigerator for 3 months because the fruit pulp goes very quickly. We try our best to get it sold as quickly as possible, because you do not want your fruit pulp, because after a while it loses the flavor. It kind of loses the flavor, and you want to be able to retain that flavor. So we try the juices are for 3 months max. And the produce, the vacuum pack produce, are 6 months max in terms of shelf life. When I say shelf life, I mean you have your expiry dates. So we'd have an expiry date for 6 months for the vacuum pack products and 3 months for the juices.
Okay. I was referencing a statement made earlier because I was trying to paint the picture and let the listeners and the viewers know how close you are to some of the recommendations that have been made in the past as far as agro-processing in the region. You were talking about addressing a range of areas that are holding back development of the agro-processing sector, and the list includes improving farmer and production connections and practices. You've touched on that as well.
Yeah.
Facility improvements. You're currently working on that, and you're getting technical support.
The retrofitting done hopefully soon.
Funding options.
The funds for the retrofitting is coming from the United Nations, so hopefully, I'm not sure if you've heard of the BAM project.
Right.
We'll be getting some funding from this project, hopefully, to retrofit the plant. So at least with the Ministry of Agriculture assisting us with some areas, we'll be getting some assistance from the United Nations in terms of the retrofitting.
Okay. Food labeling and improvements and analytical options.
As I mentioned earlier, we're hoping that when we get the expertise from Argentina, all of these areas will be covered.
Okay, we have a call. Good evening, caller.
Okay, can you listen again?
Yes, sir.
I call in connection with about the food house. It is. You would realize, what's the name of your guest again?
Cynthia Lionel.
Yes, Mrs. Lionel, that one of the leading causes of sickness in Tunisia, of death, is cancer. And the reason why I asked the question is because with all those chemicals, especially the fertilizer which has been added to some of our crops, okay, is one of the contributing factors to a lot of people getting sick. Before, when you look at the past, before, okay, in my time, I remember, okay, we had organic farming, okay, and people were a lot healthier. But right now, with all those fertilizers which have been added to the food processing right now, people are getting sick, okay, and I must say it is one of the contributing factors. But it might be it might be one of the factors why a lot of our people are prone to all kinds of sickness, especially cancer. Okay, I'll listen to you up there.
Okay, thanks for your contribution.
Okay, I just want to let the caller know that, like I said, I'm not an expert in that field, but one of the things that I've known over the years is that, and I try my best not to practice it, is to, you see, when you bring a lot of those items that we bring in, forget about our products, you have a lot of items coming in from overseas, and there's a lot of artificial flavors and colors and preservatives. And this is what makes the shelf life longer for these items. And so while he's talking about the chemicals in the produce, he's talking about the fertilizers and the chemicals. In addition to that, there is the artificial aspect of it. So I really cannot expound much on that aspect. But what I could say is, if we try as much as possible, and every one of us, and I've heard the Ministry of Agriculture say that, if we could try to grow what we eat, try to grow organic, because we can grow organic. We may not get the size and the size that we want, but if we grow organic, we're sure we'll be eating safe.
Okay, do we have a call? Hello? Okay. We don't have a call. But that's a good point that you're making, and I see where he's coming from, but as he quite rightly said, he corrected himself, it may be one of the factors.
One of the many factors.
There are a number of factors. I know the Ministry of Health and the Minister, Alvina Reynolds, has been preaching this a lot lately, the importance of lifestyle changes as we move to address non-communicable diseases in St. Lucia, including heart disease, cancer, and the like. But one of the important things that we're missing is whether you buy local or you buy imported, read the labels, look at the ingredients. And a common guide is that if there's anything on it that you cannot pronounce, you probably shouldn't be consuming it.
Exactly.
You know, even the fruits that we assume are natural, they have stickers on them. You know, and if you Google it, you can see the rationale behind the codes on the stickers. Those starting with 4, those starting with 5, those starting with 9 indicate whether it is organic, whether it is grown with pesticides. You know, so take the time to get informed, educate yourself. Don't leave it entirely up to the Ministry of Health or the likes of Cynthia Lionel and the agro-processing plant. But, you know, read the labels, do the research, you know, and make sure that what you're eating is as close to natural as possible. And she's already guaranteed that they've gone out of their way to ensure that the products coming out of the agro-processing plant are as close to the natural state as possible.
And if I may add, I think let's try to support local. We tend to think that international is better, but that might be a wrong concept. Let's try to support local. Let's support our local stuff. Let us support the FASO agro-processing plant. There are no artificial flavors or colors or preservative. Let us try to support what we have here, because at least you have an idea what you're dealing with. While here, you have no idea what you're dealing with the imported stuff. So let's try as much as possible to eat healthy and support local.
And that's it for our program tonight. Cynthia Nyland, I want to thank you very much for being with us. I know it's been a very long day for you. I know it was on short notice, but I want to thank you for accommodating us and spending the last 90 minutes with us. I want to thank our viewers for watching, for callers who called in. Thank you very much. We'll look forward to joining you next week when we have another program and another guest. This is Newsmaker Live. I'm Kendall Burton. Good night.